Environmentalists are getting more worried about the effects of fast fashion on the environment. Fast fashion is the mass production of clothes at a low cost. They are put in shops and online quickly to create a high demand. Manufacturers make 100 billion items of clothing every year. This is expected to grow by 60% by 2030. The fast fashion business model is having a negative effect on the environment. Many of the clothes end up in landfills and are not recycled. Another negative effect on the environment is caused by the chemicals used to make the clothes. These cause health problems for people working in clothes factories. There are reports children make many of these clothes. The way people are buying clothes is adding to the problem of clothing waste. Many years ago, people went to stores and tried clothes on. People took more time and thought more carefully before they bought clothes. They also wore them for longer. Today, people order cheap clothes on the internet, and if they don't like them, they send them back. Some people say this is causing a throwaway society. Some people buy clothes and never even wear them. The German media company Deutsche Welle wrote, "Every year in Europe, 4 million tons of clothing ends up in the trash. Less than 1% of this is recycled." It seems the fashion industry is not so sustainable. This is Sean Daly reporting from Port Orchard, Washington.
Now, if watching the news programme showing conflict or even the football matches in the European Championships is going to be too stressful, how about tuning into a very different type of content? One man in Scotland has built up a huge online following by filming his day job. Cerys Maidment reports.
From pimple popping to power washing, the internet is full of oddly satisfying content. And for one man in Scotland, posting up-close and personal videos of his job is earning him up to 170 million views a month.
Welcome to the Hoof GP and a cow with an extremely sore back left foot that becomes very obvious after the very first swipe of the grinder.
Graham Parker, otherwise known as the Hoof GP, is a professional hoof trimmer working across cattle farms in the area. From pus splats to huge ulcers, no effort is spared when it comes to relieving animals of their sore and clogged feet.
So as I picked this cow's foot up, it instantly started to ooze all of this fluid out of the sole of it.
Starting off 5 years ago as a way to share his technique with local farmers, his audience rapidly grew, with subscribers both in and outside the industry.
Every single day of the week, people are contacting us to ask how to do this or how to do that, how we can help them, or just to say how we've kind of helped them in their lives, even although they're not in agriculture, which is something I never expected to happen, but has been a really humbling and incredibly kind of endearing thing that has happened.
From the audience's reaction, it seems to be a mix of fascination with his craft and his care for animals that keeps them watching. One YouTube user said, "If you would have told me 3 weeks ago that watching cows get their hooves repaired would make my life better, I would have laughed in your face. Well, here we are today, and I love it." Others have reported looking more closely at cows in fields on their commutes to work, or just a growth in their general compassion for animals, all thanks to his videos. And for some, they've even found transferable skills in Graham's content. One user commented, "Strangely, I find myself peeling potatoes differently now." But despite the fame and 6.8 million subscribers across the social media platforms, it's still just a side hustle to his one true passion.
Things have got quite big, but I'm still a hoof trimmer who hoof trims, and that is my job.
That report was by Cerys Maidment. Still to come.
Now, are you obsessed with working, spending long, excessive hours in the office and finding it difficult to stop thinking about work? Well, the British writer James Graham has told the BBC about attending Workaholics Anonymous for his addiction, which he claims is not treated as seriously as when people are hooked on drugs or alcohol.
I think the moment I realised I had a problem was I'd started to lie to my family and my friends about stupid things that didn't even need lying about. Like they would go, "You look tired, what time did you get up today to work?" And I would say, "Oh, 8. And I'd say to myself, "But I know I got up at 5. That's really weird. Why did I say that?" Or I wouldn't have eaten for like a whole day.
The writer James Graham. Gary from Workaholics Anonymous told his story to my colleague Amal Rajan.
I was working as an executive in media, and I think it got to the stage where I was so obsessed with work that I had got myself into a kind of mindset that I just wasn't doing enough, and that if I wasn't superhuman and, living up to my nickname of the Dragon Slayer and bringing in millions of pounds worth of work, that everyone was talking about me and that I was going to be sacked. I'd even sort of thought, well, it'd be perfectly reasonable if they called the police and accused me of fraud because I simply wasn't bringing in enough work, So I thought, I'll be preemptive and resign. And then when I resigned, people were just like shocked and thought, but we love having you here. You're the grown-up. You're the adult. You hold the place together. We need you. My personal feeling is that it is probably one of the biggest addictions in the world. And it's the only addiction, of course, just about that you get marked positively for, you get points for it. Alcoholism and drug addiction have got their kind of moral sort of bad image, but workaholism, yeah.
What's the treatment and what have you pursued as treatment?
Workaholics Anonymous is very like Alcoholics Anonymous, based on that. And largely it's a program of just other workaholics helping each other to realize that it is actually okay to take 5 minutes every hour to go for a pee break. It is actually okay to say to your boss at 6:30, I'm sorry, but I have to leave, Just putting in simple boundaries. What is a good amount of hours to work a week? What is, the absolute maximum I'll work? All of those things are very simple, but for a workaholic whose head is full of, I need approval from my authority figures, you need the support of a group to say, no, it's okay. Keep going. Keep learning to relax. There is so much shame and sense of self and self-esteem wrapped up in work that it's when you're with a bunch of people who have very similar kind of warped mindsets, shall we say, that you start to think, yeah, well, these people are like me. They get where my crazy head's coming from.
And how are you now, Gary?
Oh, great. I've been doing this for 14 years and I've retired, which for a workaholic is another kind of challenge, shall we say, because you don't have to have a job to be a workaholic. You can run around with far too many hobbies.
Gary from Workaholics Anonymous. So we've been talking about the Oscars, and now we're going to end this podcast hearing from another movie star. But it's not to do with Hollywood. It's to do with green energy in Africa. The actor in question is Idris Elba, who's leading a regeneration project in Sierra Leone. It's an eco-city on the rural Sherbro Island off the coast of West Africa with a wind and solar farm. Fewer than a third of homes in Sierra Leone have electricity. Our business reporter David Waddle asked Idris Elba why Sherbro Island was chosen.
Originally, we went there looking at how could we bring tourism to the most incredible 19 miles of beachfront that was there. And then we saw something a bit more innovative, a bit more exciting, was this idea of building a sort of eco-smart city, preserving what's beautiful about it, but at the same time attracting partners to help build it out, if you like, and explore it. So that's how it came about.
This is essentially a commercial project. I guess you're looking at profits. Will Sierra Leone, the people of Sierra Leone, see those profits? When
you talk about profits, it's really about, are we ever going to make a profit? I don't think so, but it's about being self-reliant. It's about bringing an economy that feeds itself, that has growth potential. I'm very keen to sort of reframe the way Africa is viewed. We often view the framing of Africa as an aid model, and this opportunity is completely different.
Sherbro Island is somewhere that until now has been focused on fishing and agriculture. You're now talking about developing a tourism industry. Is this somewhere I should be looking at for our next family holiday?
Yes, we want to find a destination in West Africa that attracts business as well as holidaymakers, as well as innovation. I'm a filmmaker. I have a dream to have a really amazing film studio there that has a sort of Universal Studios type theme. So my roller coaster is over there and my movie over there. I think you and your family will go to a place where there's winter sun. It's 7 hours away from Europe for the most part, and it's beautiful.
And Idris, what is it that's inspired you to lend not just your passion, but also your name to a project like this?
Never in my lifetime would I have thought I could help build the foundation for a new smart city. No, I'm not qualified for that, but I am qualified to dream big. And my parents came to this country when they were young, late 60s, with the aspirations of going home. My mum's still alive, but my dad isn't. So part of me wants to build that beautiful retirement home for my mum where she can go back and say, wow, my little guy that was born in Hackney came back home and built this incredible island. And it's a dream. But I work in the make-believe business, and it's exactly that, make-believe, you know?
Actor Idris.
Now, another uplifting story. In more than 2 decades as a cook for a Burger King restaurant at an airport in Las Vegas, Kevin Ford has never missed a shift. And his hard work has gone viral after his sister set up a fundraising campaign to recognise his years of service. Kevin's been able to buy a home with the proceeds since then, more than $450,000 raised so far. But despite his internet fame, he's kept doing what he loves most, working hard in the kitchen at Burger King. James Reynolds caught up with Kevin and asked him what keeps him going.
When I think about providing for my kids and just doing what I have to do, pay my bills, that's always kept me going.
It's obviously 27 years without missing a day, but it's not 27 years in perfect health. How did you get to work on days when you were feeling ill? What propelled you?
Other than the Lord, I guess it was just trying to just stay healthy as possible. I would be at work at times with back pain, laying on the floor in front of the fryers, and people would be urging me to go home, but I'd be thinking about power bills or keeping health insurance for my kids. So it's just, I really don't have an answer for that. I just never really thought about missing a day. I just always pushed through.
Your family, as they saw your dedication to your work, what would they say to you about what you were teaching them?
My daughters all knew my dad, and they all knew my mom. My mom, they're both passed on now, but they that was their grandparents, and they seen that my mom raised 7 kids, and my dad was in the Air Force. Is the reason we were even out here, because he was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, and they would really just know it was bred in my blood to work hard and to provide for our family.
And you got to 27 years at work. Describe the job you do at Burger King and the hours that you work in that job.
Back in the day, we used to work 4 10-hour shifts, but now it's 8-hour shifts. And you come in, you do front and back, depending upon where you're assigned to. But once they kind of know what you're good at or what you like, they kind of leave you. If you're up front, you take orders, you constantly cleaning, constantly stocking, handing out orders, tons and tons of order, because we're in, used to be McCarran Airport, now it's Harry Reid Airport. We're one of the busiest cooking and cleaning. You just cook and clean from the time you come in. You're washing dishes, you're making burgers, you're making fries, and it's hot. You know, it's Vegas, so.
Have you ever calculated how many burgers, how many fries you might have made over the years?
No, now my head would explode. Would literally explode. I try not to think about that even in a day. But it's amazing that I tell the crew all the time, you know, sometimes, you know, we have great managers, but sometimes they don't tell you how good a job you do. So I tell people, because you're around these people more than you're around your own family.
When you got to 27 years, there was a small goodie bag given to you. Who gave that to you?
It was the managers, but the day or a couple days before that, I was like goofing off, like, you know, making everybody laugh, and somebody had went by. I was washing dishes like I'm always doing, and I said, "This is the prize I get. I have to wash these dishes for my 27-year anniversary." And there was a manager named Sherry. She's awesome. She ran next door. She got me a piece of chocolate cake and you know, said, "Happy anniversary." And I love that cake. I ate that cake. And I guess she got word to HR or something that it was my 27th year. Excuse me. And like the next day, a couple more managers presented me with that bag. I don't think they put it together, but they were told, like, from upper management or somebody, to give me that bag.
Your daughter, Serena, said you continue to work at Burger King because of the amazing health insurance that's been provided through your employer. But also she wanted to tell the world a bit about you and the fact that you never missed a day's work, and set up the GoFundMe page. And that's begun to change your life a bit, I guess.
She just wanted to get $200 so I could go out there and see my grandkids for the plane ticket. And it blew up and it continues to blow up. I guess people keep wanting to tip me and they see something in me that even I can't even see in myself at times. So it's a beautiful thing. It's absolutely changed my life and the lives of my children and my grandchildren forever.
You've been able to buy your first home with the proceeds?
Yeah, been able to do a lot of things. Renting a house, and the rent was so high that when I got off work, I would drive Uber Eats and DoorDash for like 4 hours. And then on my days off, I would do those for 16 to 20 hours just to pay my bills, put money up for my retirement and for my kids. And then, yes, I just purchased a house and I'm in it right now. I'm glad we're not on video because it's a mess.
We wouldn't mind. We wouldn't mind.
Boxes everywhere, man.
And so, Kevin, do you still work at doing your shifts at Burger King?
Yeah, I still work. I'm 56, but I feel strong and everything. And I think I'm going to go I want to get to either 30 years or 35, and then I'll even think about retiring. But while I'm young, I still feel young and everything. I'm just going to keep working.
Kevin Ford, who has never missed a day of work in 27 years of making burgers.
To find out.
Now, if I was to say to you that I work in a sector that contributes over $20 billion per year towards my country's GDP, you may well reply, great, leave it alone then, don't change anything.
No es razonable un país que tiene abiertos sus restaurantes a la 1 de la madrugada.
Well, that's Yolanda Díaz, the Labour Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, and she's talking about the food and drinks industry. Díaz wants bars and restaurants, which can stay open as late as 3 a.m, to close much earlier. But what do Spanish people who live this lifestyle, but also tourists, whose income represents about 12% of Spanish economy, think about the idea?
I think it's a really good idea. I agree, of course. I think she means that if you work until 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you have to be well paid. It's not that now that we work until 1 o'clock, but the salary is not really proper for that schedule.
I don't want to change anything. I like Spain, I love Spain, and I would like to be, I like things like that.
When we're on the road, we like to get our days started early, and it's a difficult city to get things started early because things close so late, they tend to open late, which means that you don't have the opportunity to go tour and do things early in the morning when, is an opportunity when it's less crowded and more, advantageous to old people like myself.
Sin problema, sin problema.
No. I've just wandered into the Mercado San Fernando, which is a really popular place, and I'm joined by the owner of one small bar called El Perenquen. I hope I've said it right, Borja. Borja, what do you think about the idea of bars and restaurants and cafes and clubs closing early?
That information is not good for us because we need to win money. If they close at 12 o'clock, maybe many locals will be closed. It's not possible to us, the workers. It's not a good decision for them too. It's not only for the enterprise. It's for the worker too.
So what would be your message then to Yolanda Díaz?
I don't want to close at 11 or 12. I need to open to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. The night is so important in Madrid. Many people only go out at the night. It's not possible.
Las sociedades desarrolladas están funcionando 24 horas.
Vicente Pizqueta is from the organization called Spain by Night, which represents bars, clubs, restaurants and discos.
All the world's major cities are active 24 hours a day. It goes without saying, such as the police, emergency services, and so too workers in clubs. But there are also many other sectors, such as cleaning and maintenance services. These can only function at night because their work can only start once the commercial activities of the day have finished, and that's when they take over.
It's coming up to lunchtime, and the bars and restaurants here in Madrid are beginning to fill up. Yolanda Diaz wants the country's working patterns to be more in line with the rest of Europe. That's to say, a 35-hour working week. But by starting with the country's nightlife and social habits, she may well have jumped off in the deep end.
Ashish Sharma in Madrid. Next to Austria.
Quiet quitting becoming common in workplaces. This is breakingnewsenglish.com. A new culture of work has been quietly spreading around offices, factories, and workplaces worldwide. Workers are increasingly embracing the concept of quiet quitting. This emerging phenomenon entails workers slowly abandoning doing things that are not part of their contract. The website entrepreneur.com defines quiet quitting as follows. Quiet quitting is the process of coming to work to achieve the minimum requirements of your role in the time that you're there, then leaving. No offers of overtime, no stepping outside your designated obligations, no going the extra mile. It's the silent withdrawal of extra labor to mitigate what are perceived as unreasonable pressures. Quiet quitting has increased in popularity since the coronavirus pandemic. People are reassessing their attitudes towards work. They have decided to achieve a more fulfilling work-life balance and focus on avoiding job burnout. Workers are jettisoning unpaid duties they once voluntarily carried out in their workplaces. They do the bare minimum and leave at 5 on the dot. Some employers are responding with what is being termed as quiet firing. This is when bosses try to get employees to leave. They do this by not raising salaries, disregarding employees' ideas, and omitting them from meetings. A LinkedIn poll found that 48% of employees in a survey have seen quiet firing in the workplace. This is Noreen Lamb reporting from Spain.
In the United States, it's not strange to see venues impose strict age restrictions on children and young adults under the legal drinking age of 21. However, a restaurant in Missouri has gone one step further, turning people away as old as 34. Ella Bicknell reports.
Lamb chops ready? Delicious. Jamaican style.
Marvin and his wife Tina set up Bliss Restaurant in the southern St. Louis suburbs to bring the joy of their Caribbean resort holidays to their local community at a fraction of the cost. For them, maintaining that sophisticated environment meant a strict age limit for patrons. Driver licences checked at the door, all women under the age of 30 and all men under 35 will be denied entry. Tina says they wanted it to have the right ambiance.
It's just something for the older people to come do and have a happy hour, come get some good food, and not have to worry about some of the young folks that bring some of that drama.
However, Marvin says not everyone has reacted well to the policy.
And of course, we have been getting a little backlash, but that's okay because we're sticking to our code.
Some online commentators have accused the restaurant of age discrimination, bombarding their site with one-star reviews, but others have taken to social media to support the move. One user said it created a very pleasant dining experience, and they'd even support an age limit to 40 and over. Others said the ban was an understandable response to St. Louis's historically high rates of antisocial behaviour. Legal concerns have been raised. However, in Missouri, the state's Human Rights Act bans discrimination only on the grounds of sex, race, religion and disability. Eating establishments cannot impose age limits on staff, but those protections don't apply to its customers. And no doubt other restaurants will be watching closely to see if the age limit restrictions on patrons imposed by Bliss turn out to be a success.
Ella Bicknell.
France is synonymous with bread and pastries. In particular, the croissant and the baguette spring to mind. The latter is currently under pressure. Increasing costs are forcing many bakers to close their bakeries or raise baguette prices. Soaring energy costs and wheat supply issues caused by the Ukraine war are making life financially untenable for many in the baguette-making industry. One baker, Julien Peducel, 36, expressed his fears for his livelihood. He may have to raise his baguette prices from 1 to 4 euros. He told reporters, "I cannot pay an electricity bill of 12,000 euros with a turnover of 20,000 euros. He is concerned that big supermarkets are still selling baguettes for less than €1. The humble baguette is on the United Nations list of intangible cultural heritage. Baguette prices are of such concern that France's President Macron has intervened. He recently described the bread as being 250 grams of magic and perfection. France's Ministry for the Economy has initiated an electricity damper. This will allow bakers to limit by how much their electricity bills rise. The ministry said aid for bakers has been reinforced and eligible bakeries can benefit from it. Consumers are facing tough choices. One lamented, "I won't pay €3 because it's double the price. Maybe sometimes I would because there is no equivalent to a baguette." She added she might have to start baking them herself.
What does the man responsible for Louis Vuitton handbags, Bernard Arnault, have in common with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg? The answer is they were all named in the latest Forbes list of the world's wealthiest people. The list provides, of course, an annual excuse for the rest of us either to gaze in admiration at this roll call of the rich, or alternatively perhaps to shudder at the thought of so much money in the hands of so few people. This year, though, the Forbes list does include nearly 3,000 billionaires, a record-breaking number, according to the man who compiled the list, Chase Peterson Withorn.
There's more than ever, and they're richer than ever, worth $14.2 trillion, $2 trillion more than last year. Stock markets around the world are up. These people are some of the biggest beneficiaries. Tech stocks are going through the roof. There's a ton of enthusiasm for AI. We've seen a lot of new billionaires come into the ranks this year who have AI companies or who are using AI in their business. But it's also really boosted the values of a lot of traditional tech billionaires, people like Mark Zuckerberg as well.
Also on the list is the world's biggest pop star, Taylor Swift. And it's all down to dominating streaming services and, of course, selling out concerts around the world, as our culture reporter, Noor Nanji, reports.
Taylor Swift dominated pop music in 2023. Now Forbes says she also became a billionaire last year, thanks to the value of her music catalogue and her earnings from her Eras tour. The magazine says she is the first musician to hit the 10-figure mark, solely based on her songs and performances. Swift released the best-selling vinyl LP of last year, a re-recording of her decade-old album 1989, containing hits like Shake It Off. The Eras tour has also broken box office records, spawned a hit movie, and even provoked an inquiry into Ticketmaster's sales practices. This year, she's gone from strength to strength. She stole the show at the Grammy Awards, becoming the first performer to win the prize for Album of the Year 4 times. It's me. Swift's success is not just confined to the world of music. Her mere presence at American football games to watch her boyfriend Travis Kelce has been credited with raising NFL viewing figures. You won't remember all my champagne problems. Forbes said there were a record 2,781 billionaires on its list, 141 more than last year. Other newcomers include Sam Altman, creator of the AI chatbot ChatGPT, while the founder of the French luxury goods firm LVMH, Bernard Arnault, and his family topped the chart with an estimated fortune of $233 billion.
Now, how rich is rich? At a time of growing wealth disparities worldwide, at least one answer is very rich indeed. And now the charity Oxfam has predicted that the world could soon have its first trillionaire. With more details, the newsroom's Sunita Nahar.
It's estimated that the scourge of poverty around the world would take 200 years to eradicate, but Oxfam predicts that it'll take just 10 years for the world to witness its first trillionaire. The charity says while 5 billion people were made poorer, the combined wealth of the world's top 5 richest men, including Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, has more than doubled from $405 billion in 2020 to more than $869 billion in 2023. Katie Chalraboti is a spokeswoman for Oxfam.
No individual, no corporation should have this much power over our lives. Nobody should have $1 billion, let alone $1 trillion. This is not the kind of economy that we need to overcome poverty. And it's not the kind of economy in which most people will thrive.
Oxfam says this disparity was supercharged by the pandemic, which created havoc in economies, and that meant that the developed countries could not provide financial aid to poorer nations. The group says action is needed and is calling on governments to reduce this widening gap between the ultra-rich and the poor by reining in corporate power.
And if you need reminding, a trillion has 12 zeros, a million. Sunita Nahar with that report.
Now, finally, I'm sure it's a problem familiar to many listeners. What do you do if you find yourself with $1.5 billion going spare? That's the challenge, if you can call it that, which faces Geneva in Switzerland. It's collected so much tax, the local authorities are now not sure what to do with it. Our reporter Stephanie Prentice has been considering the options.
I'm sure any government officials listening would love to be in that position, an overflow of the public purse, not a deficit. And the canton or region of Geneva has responded with the suggestion first of not raising taxes and of free public transport for young people. Now, when it comes to the population in and around Geneva, you don't have to be wealthy to live there, but it helps. And of course, not everyone is. So this idea of free public transport for the under-25s, that's been very well received. From a social sort of perspective, it is quite a rental culture there. We know younger people are finding it hard to lock down those affordable rents. Free transport would obviously ease that strain. And from a lifestyle sort of thing, it would apply to the whole canton. So imagine you could get in a train, go up to the Montreux Jazz Festival with your friends. You can go up to the mountains. And the government also says if this passes, it could be in place fairly quickly. Now, from another angle, the free transport, it's also getting a big thumbs up from a climate perspective. So it's seen as encouraging that younger generation to move away from using cars.
Now, I'm more used to reporting on places where they're short of money, short of tax revenues, etc. But I know you've been looking into this, and there are other examples of places that suddenly found themselves with spare cash on their hands.
Yeah, so in Switzerland, Geneva isn't an exception. There's another affluent canton of Zug. It's also used to seeing its public finances do very, very well. But this year in particular, it's going very well. So much so, actually, that the local press launched this competition. They were asking people to write in, give them ideas of what to do with all this spare money. They did initially look at digging giant tunnels. Those ideas kept being rejected by planning. They looked at free public transport as well, and even the idea of building a gigantic ski slope. Yeah, right near the mountains. Around the world, as we've said, excess public cash doesn't tend to be that much of an issue, but we have seen other governments do some we could call interesting things with public money. So in Sweden, for example, the government is currently planning this art exhibit. So imagine it's in a railway station. It's called Forever Employment. And the person they pick as part of it, they'll be employed to live in a room in that station for the rest of their life to do whatever they want. And that will be funded by the taxpayer. The prison service there, they also got invented. They spent almost $100,000 on making a podcast with the prisoners and marketing it. And a story we covered here that I really enjoyed, it was from the Tasmanian Premier, Jeremy Rockcliffe. He was campaigning on building the world's largest chocolate fountain if he was re-elected. That was actually quite a divisive policy. Now, he actually was re-elected with a minority, admittedly, so we'll keep an eye on whether he gets that particular policy over the line.
Okay, I'm going to be a bit unfair here. As you've looked into all what these other people have done, I'm going to let you imagine you suddenly find yourself the head of a regional council and you've got $1.5 billion to spare. What would you spend it on?
Well, thanks for asking, because I do often imagine that. I think the temptation to lean into some light corruption would be strong, to build myself perhaps a mega chalet up in the mountains. But I did also have to think about I could do fondue Fridays. There's only 200,000 people in that canton of Geneva. I could buy them all a fondue every Friday for, I think, around 300 days, I think I could get that going for.
Stephanie Prentice. And that's all from us for now.
Tech giant Apple of monopolising the smartphone market in a landmark lawsuit against the company. At a news conference, the US Attorney General Merrick Garland said Apple was using its market dominance to hurt rivals, developers and customers.
We allege that Apple has employed a strategy that relies on exclusionary, anti-competitive conduct that hurts both consumers and developers. For consumers, that has meant fewer choices, higher prices and fees, lower quality smartphones, apps, and accessories, and less innovation from Apple and its competitors. For developers, that has meant being forced to play by rules that insulate Apple from competition. And as outlined in our complaint, we allege that Apple has consolidated its monopoly power, not by making its own products better, but by making other products worse.
Apple said the case was wrong on the facts and the law and that it would vigorously defend itself. The tech company has also faced legal action from regulators elsewhere, including in the European Union, Japan and South Korea. Rahul Tandon spoke to our New York business correspondent Michelle Fleury and asked her, is the Biden administration really taking on big tech?
I think it's reminiscent to the case against Microsoft back in the 90s. It's going to take a long time before we see any resolution of this. It is also not the first time that the Department of Justice has crossed hairs with Apple. I think it's the third time they've kind of been sued for an illegal monopoly over the past 14 years. But this is the key product. We're talking about an illegal monopoly over smartphones. This is, the main moneymaker for Apple for a very long time. They are accused of stifling competition. They are accused of blocking super apps, of suppressing mobile cloud streaming. They're accused of limiting how well third-party smartwatches work across its platform. So it is going to have a widespread impact on this company, and it is going to be one that Apple is going to fight tooth and nail.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because it was earlier this month that we had the EU fining Apple over 1.8 billion euros because of App Store restrictions. We've seen this action in the EU. Now we have this case in the US. Is it a coordinated attempt by the authorities to tackle the likes of Apple?
I think what we're seeing is increasing scrutiny of giant tech companies, not just Apple. We're seeing it also with Google and others. It just all seems to be kind of coming to a head at the same moment. Don't forget, you've got Apple also is engaged in another kind of war of words with the maker of the Fortnite game, again, over excessive fees that the game maker says Apple charges them. That is something that's been working its way through the case, aside from, as you mentioned, these other antitrust cases, both in Europe, but also here in the United States. The question is, what happens next? Will this detract Apple from kind of, its sort of day-to-day focus? If you look at sort of what went on with Microsoft, this lasted for years. So it'll be interesting to watch how this plays out. But again, they've made the point that things like the Apple Watch works better with an iPhone than other brands. And it's all about how Apple locks out competitors. For its part, Apple obviously is pushing back vigorously, saying that, this will harm their business going forward and their ability to kind of make products that consumers love.
Antarctic survey. 68 years after it burst onto the Parisian nightlife scene, Chez Michou, the trailblazing drag cabaret that inspired the French comedy film La Cage aux Folles and the Hollywood movie Birdcage, has announced its closing. Terry Egan reports.
Succès foudroyant cette année, les spectacles burlesques de travestis. Just some of the atmosphere from Chez Michoud, which opened in 1956, well placed in the northern Montmartre district of Paris and featuring male caricatures of female personalities, the nightclub could be said to have introduced France to drag entertainment. But despite being Paris's smallest cabaret, it nevertheless held its own against more conventional venues, such as Moulin Rouge and the Crazy Horse, and was famous for its own versions of big-name performers, including Dalida and Liza Minnelli. The transvestite cabaret was launched by the icon of French culture it was named after, Michoud, whose real name was Michel Catty. Famous for his big tinted glasses and blue outfits, he died in 2020, but not before inspiring the comedy film La Cage aux Folles, which was later remade as The Birdcage with Robin Williams.
Don't use that tone to me. What tone? That sarcastic, contemptuous tone that means you know everything because you're a man and I know nothing because I'm a woman.
You're not a woman.
Oh.
But it was competitors, perhaps, attracting a younger, more revved-up audience, which meant that Chez Michoud lost bookings and struggled financially. Either way, Sunday's show was its last. The mascara has run, and the vanity lights look to have flickered out, at least for now.
That report by Terry Egan.
The department store Macy's, which opened its first shop in 1858, became one of the US's most famous brands and has been the go-to for fashion and beauty for years. But the business has now announced plans to close 150 stores, more than a fifth of its empire, over the next 3 years and focus more on luxury shopping instead. Sam Fennick asked retail analyst Neil Saunders to give us his take on the news.
The axe is cutting deep because Macy's really needs to get its house in order in terms of optimizing the number of stores it has. And that's very important because one of the other things that they want to do is invest more in the stores that remain. So they don't want to put investment into stores that they don't really think have a future or that aren't going to deliver a return on that investment. So they're being very surgical and they're taking out stores that they just don't think have a future in their portfolio. And that is quite harsh. It is a deep cut. There's a lot of stores that are going to be closed as a result of this. But arguably, it's something that Macy's probably should have done before. It just hasn't pruned as it's gone along. So now we've got this massive wave of closures coming as Macy's tries to right-size.
Online shopping compared to other markets has been in the past fairly immature in the US. Is it finally starting to catch up? Are the US consumers starting to really embrace it like European consumers are?
Yes, I think it's fair to say that the pandemic pushed a lot more people to shop online, and online has become a much more significant part of the market. It's not quite at the level in the US as it is in the UK, for example. The UK is a very advanced market. It's not at the level of China, which is another very advanced online market, but it's certainly catching up and it's becoming a more significant part of retail. That said, it's still important to remember that even in most categories and overall, store sales are still the vast majority of retail sales in the US. So it's not the cause of all of Macy's problems.
Neil Saunders.
The French post office, La Poste, has issued a commemorative postage stamp to honor France's famous bread, the baguette. The new stamp is not a run-of-the-mill issue. Its surface is coated with tiny capsules that, once broken, release the fragrance of freshly baked bread. The €1.96 stamp depicts a baguette decorated with a red, white, and blue ribbon. A shopkeeper in the heart of Paris that sells the Scratch and Sniff stamp said it had a bakery smell. The stamp was launched on Thursday to celebrate the day of the patron saint of bakers and pastry chefs. La Poste said it had an initial print run of 594,000 copies. It also said French bakers bake more than 6 billion baguettes every year. The baguette is very close to the hearts of French people. France's President Emmanuel Macron once described it as being 250 grams of magic and perfection. La Poste wrote about the French loaf on its website. It called the baguette the bread of our daily lives, the symbol of our gastronomy, the jewel of our culture. It explained why the baguette was so popular. It said, it is the promise of a delectable sensory experience. On view, it seduces with its golden crust. Fresh from the oven, its toasted scent whets the appetite. The baguette was given UNESCO heritage status in 2022. La Poste called the bread an ambassador of the bakery craft. It said the baguette transcends borders to become an international icon. Thank you for listening to BreakingNewsEnglish.com.
Hugh Schofield. Australia's richest person is not happy. Gina Rinehart, an heiress and mining magnate, may possess a fortune reportedly worth more than $30 billion, but she's upset by a painting at the National Gallery of Australia. It's a rather unflattering portrait of her, showing her with wonky eyes and a huge double chin, as Mickey Bristow, our Asia-Pacific editor, told me.
It's pretty unflattering, this picture, as you mentioned just there. She's looking very jowly, wide-eyed, pink, flushed skin. Really, really a poor depiction of Gina Rinehart. In defence of the artist, this picture is one of a series of portraits of people who have shaped Australia, and they're all caricatures. And so it fits in this series. I have to say, though, Gina Rinehart's picture is slightly worse than most of the others.
So tell us more about her.
Gina Rinehart, she's the richest person in Australia. She inherited a mining company from her father, but turned that around and has really increased its wealth. She's also into agriculture, moved into media. She's also a really larger-than-life figure. She's outspoken on a number of political issues about too much taxation. She's also supported climate change deniers in the past. She's even had arguments which have gone to the court with her own family. 3 of her 4 children, her mother-in-law, just to name a few people she's been in court with. So really she's an outspoken figure. So it's not necessarily unexpected to see her being angry about this particular painting.
And how have other people been reacting to the painting and to this controversy?
Yeah, it's interesting, this row, actually, how it's played out, because she's a major philanthropist, and so she's put millions and millions, particularly into sport in Australia. So a lot of key swimmers in the country and lots of swimming organisations have actually supported her dislike of this picture and have asked, actually, the gallery itself if they would take it down. Inevitably, though, you've got lots of people on the other side of the argument who think, look, this is artistic expression, people should be allowed to paint what they want, and it's a dangerous precedent just to take down a picture because some particular person doesn't like it. Interestingly, the artist himself, Vincent Namatjwe, is an Aboriginal artist. He said he's painted this series of pictures to make people think about influence and privilege. He says he just paints the world exactly as he sees it. So that's the last word, really, from him.
Well, and paradoxically, Gina Rinehart's complaints probably mean many more people are going to see this portrait than would have done otherwise.
Exactly. It's the age-old problem, isn't it? When you complain about something, nobody sees it. You make the complaint, everybody in the world sees it.
Mickey Bristow, and you can see the portrait as well as the others in the exhibition on the BBC News website.
The Chinese-owned online shopping platform Temu has exploded in popularity in the past year, shipping to customers in 49 countries around the world. It sells everything from clothes to electronics at extremely low prices, and even advertised during this year's Super Bowl. The BBC's Sam Gruey has been investigating how it is so cheap and how it can afford to spend millions of dollars on advertising.
The 49ers are going back to the Super Bowl.
A record 123 million Americans tuned into the Super Bowl last month. They were there for the nation's biggest sporting event and a dazzling halftime performance. But they got something else too.
I feel like a billionaire. I'm shopping like a billionaire.
6 30-second commercials for a Chinese-owned online shopping platform that's transforming the world of online e-commerce, Temu. It launched in the US in 2022 and is the offspring of Pinduoduo, which dominates China's home market.
Every Chinese person is buying their products, whether it be a speaker or a t-shirt or socks.
Sean Ren is the founder of the China Market Research Group. He says there's a reason Temu's prices are so low.
They're mostly selling unbranded goods. You're able to go straight to the consumer, straight from the factories, which is why they're able to have such cheap prices.
It's a bit like Amazon on steroids.
That's retail analyst Neil Saunders.
When you open the app or you go to the site, there's lots of products flashing up at you, lots of discounts, lots of offers. In 2022, they were virtually nothing. And now Temu is getting on for tens of millions of downloads a month.
A big reason for this? Advertising.
The company shelled out $7 million to run 30-second commercials during the Super Bowl.
And we know that after that commercial, Temu downloads really spiked in the US.
Cheap products must be good for the consumer, right? Well, some people have raised concerns about Temu's supply chains, including Alicia Kearns, a British politician for the Conservative Party.
So when you look into where Temu gets its goods from, where in China it is producing them, you can see that these are areas where we know that there is the use of forced Uyghur slave labour.
She's talking about the Uyghur people.
It's estimated that nearly 1 million, mostly Muslim Uyghurs, are detained in camps in the northwest region of Xinjiang. China denies the claims and says the camps are vocational training schools.
A report from last year from the US Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party found there was an extremely high risk Temu products could have been made using forced labour, as the company only requires suppliers to agree to a code of conduct. Temu says it strictly prohibits the use of forced, penal or child labour by all of its merchants. But with prices so low, some people feel they don't have a choice about shopping at Temu, like single mum Rina, who lives in the UK.
Sometimes I feel guilty, because I know this fast fashion. Unfortunately, at this time, I cannot go to more sustainable shops.
US consumers do seem to be buying into Temu. It was Apple's most downloaded free app in 2023 and currently has more than 100 million active users. Temu now wants to take on its China-owned retail rival Shein and ultimately Amazon. But with politicians viewing Chinese-owned companies with growing hostility, that might not be so easy.
Sam Gruet reporting.
Next to Austria, where an heiress is setting up a group of citizens to decide how to give away much of her fortune. Marlene Engelhorn, who lives in Vienna, has sent out invitations to 10,000 members of the public. 50 will be chosen to help work out how more than $21 million should be redistributed. Bethany Bell reports.
Marlene Engelhorn is a descendant of Friedrich Engelhorn, the founder of the German chemical and pharmaceutical company BASF. She inherited millions when her grandmother died. Austria abolished inheritance tax in 2008, and Miss Engelhorn believes that is unfair. She's setting up a group of 50 Austrians to attend a series of meetings in Salzburg to decide how to redistribute her fortune. They'll be paid €1,200 to attend 6 weekend meetings and would be supported by academics and other specialists. Miss Engelhorn will have no right to veto the group's final decision. According to the initiative's website, if the group can't come up with a widely supported decision on what to do with the money, then it will go back to Miss Engelhorn.
Bethany Bell.
Football now, and according to the book Soccernomics, there is a direct relationship between a club's wage bill and its position in the English Premier League. Put simply, the more a team pays its players, the better it does. Now, in an attempt to keep the Premiership competitive, clubs have agreed in principle to back a spending cap, as I heard from our senior sports news reporter Laura Scott.
What this would be is another financial control to effectively tie the
spending power of any club to a percentage, basically a multiple, of the television revenue and prize money of the lowest earning side. So effectively, all of the clubs would be governed by the same upper limit or salary cap or spending cap, although this is being termed anchoring. It isn't yet in force. What they've agreed to today is to further explore the potential to introduce this kind of model. So they've basically given permission for the Premier League to do the final financial and legal analysis that's required for the model and draw up the rules. Those would then be voted on potentially in June at the Premier League's AGM. So we're still quite a long way from this spending cap being introduced, but today is a significant moment because you've got 16 of the 20 Premier League clubs saying, actually, yes, you can go on and develop this potential model, ready for a vote.
So what would that mean for teams like Manchester City and Newcastle with rich owners?
Well, we know that Manchester United are one of the clubs who voted against developing these proposals today. Newcastle seemingly in favour of at least exploring the opportunity. Theoretically, what it's meant to do is try to level out the competitiveness of the Premier League. We are anticipating that Manchester City will win a 4th Premier League title in a row. Well, is that a competitive league? That is up for discussion. But then what they don't want to do is stifle Premier League clubs' abilities to compete with their European counterparts. And that is the opposition that you get from the likes of Manchester United, Manchester City and Aston Villa, which are that if you put everyone on the same cap, you are stifling their ambition, you're actually punishing people who've grown their revenues over the last few years, and that's not a way to run a competitive league.
Laura Scott.
Now, here's a sparkly ender to the podcast for you. Around the globe, inflation has hit many millions of households and the cost of living crisis is not yet over. But one thing at least that is coming down in price is diamonds. The De Beers company, which has massive sway in the global diamond market, is cutting prices, partly because of the current cost of living crisis. People just won't pay as much for diamonds. But there is another particular issue for De Beers. Diamonds can now be grown in labs and to a very high quality. So naturally occurring diamonds have some competition, with the supply of jewels not as constrained as it was. Well, my colleague Evan Davis spoke to the diamond specialist Jackie Larson. She came into the BBC studios here with some gems to see if one can tell the difference between the natural diamonds and those that are man-made, grown in the lab. Before that, though, Evan asked her to what extent De Beers can set the price of diamonds.
Well, I think if you're talking back to the 90s, they really were the dominant force. But in more recent times, actually things have changed considerably. About a third of the diamond market actually comes from Russia. Hence, a lot of movement in the price. So soon after the outbreak of the Ukraine war, diamond prices really surged because I think there was a lot of concern that the supply was going to tighten up. And then more recently, they've softened considerably. But De Beers really doesn't have they can't exercise that same level of control that they used to when they commanded sort of 80% or thereabouts of the market, which they just don't do now.
Now, part of the suggestion of what has been going on is that there is more competition from lab-grown diamonds. I think we should just establish what a lab-grown diamond is. I mean, diamond is pure carbon, right, in a crystal form.
When you talk about a natural diamond, so one which has been mined, versus a lab-grown, so one that's been synthesized in a factory, it is still a diamond. It has the same physical and optical properties, so of course it behaves in exactly the same way. But the price of lab-grown has de-escalated so enormously recently. So at the last National Association of Jewellers conference, I think lab-grown were about 90% less than the value of their natural counterparts. So that's really substantial. Wow. So as a consumer, that's quite a difficult...
You can see why that might drag the price of the natural diamonds down.
But you have to understand that they are also two completely different value propositions.
And important you make that. Well, look, I think it is going to be interesting to see whether novices can possibly tell the difference between the lab-grown and the natural diamond. And I know you've got some diamonds with you.
I have.
and you have what they call a loop, which is the little eyepiece that you can use to...
Well, you're very welcome to use this as well. So a loop is an instrument that is almost like the first thing that we would reach for. And really all assessments of diamonds is done at 10 times magnification. So it's the thing.
So we've got these are all embedded in jewellery as we
So that's, so we've got a rose gold stretchy bracelet that's got some Pave set diamonds.
Jackie has just given Evan a ring, a necklace, a bracelet and some earrings. Only the earrings have lab-grown diamonds in them. The rest are all natural.
Yeah, right. I just thought if I only brought in 2, it was kind of cheating because you'd
50-50 chance.
Exactly. I just wanted to make it a little bit more challenging for you.
Right. Just glancing at them, it's obviously not possible for me to tell. Now, I'm going to hold up. I mean,
what
honestly,
do you think you're looking for? And how do you feel doing this?
I think I'm looking for the sort of purity of the tilt, the not the cuts, the angles.
What's interesting is that the quality of the lab-grown diamonds now is extremely high. The stones are of such quality that they're a beautiful colour, very clean stones.
I'm guessing the ring is the is lab-grown, but funny enough, the one I thought was least interesting was the earring. But I think that just looks like a real diamond to me, even though it's a bit less sparkly.
The ring is about a £50,000 beautiful cushion-cut natural diamond.
Okay, so...
but you were right with the earring drop. The pear cut is the lab-grown. But frankly, if I showed it to you next to a natural pear cut, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference either.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Well, look, the next question, and this is the really important philosophical question that comes out of this. If we can't really tell the difference, does it matter? Why don't I just buy a lab-grown diamond at 10% of the price of the natural one?
Well, that would largely explain the fact that for the first time last year, over 50% of the bridal market featured lab-grown diamonds. You'd be kidding yourself if you thought it wasn't an important part of the market. It is. But I think what is essential is that consumers are very clear from a value point of view what they're getting, because there is absolutely no secondary value with a lab-grown diamond.
That was the diamond specialist Jackie Larson talking to my colleague, but not quite a diamond expert, Evan Davis.
It's a sad outcome for a beauty and skincare brand that in the 1980s and 90s won legions of young fans for its opposition to testing products on animals and its ethical trading ethos. The Body Shop, a common sight in many high streets and shopping malls around the world, is facing job losses and shop closures after it was announced it was appointing administrators. The Body Shop was founded by the environmental campaigner and entrepreneur Anita Roddick in 1976, before she sold it 30 years later. Here she is in 2006, shortly before her death, talking about her vision for the business.
The word brand wasn't floating around when I started 30 odd years ago. All I wanted was an honourable enterprise. I never even wanted a business, because for me a business was seen as a small version of a large corporation, and I didn't like hierarchy, and women entrepreneurs hate hierarchy. So no, I never ever thought it would be as big as it was. But I knew in my DNA, whatever I was going to do was going to be iconoclastic and different, and I'd be, putting 2 fingers up at the system, whatever the system was.
The brand and retail expert Mary Portas told us what made the Body Shop so ahead of its time.
She was the first to go out there with an ethically sourced, naturally based ingredient. What's so sad about this is we talk about that if this was invented today, people would have just been like jumping up and down, because so many people have copied it. She was ahead of the game. And the green beauty landscape has transformed now with sport for choice, and there's been so much competition. But it was a mecca of joy. And everything that she stood for was what business should be today. She talked about business being a force for good. and making progress and having effect in the world. And so when you bought from the Body Shop, you didn't just buy, which I loved, the White Musk Eau de Toilette, which I sprayed every Saturday morning in there, or the shiny bath pearls. You bought into a value system that she stood for, and you wanted to be part of her gang. Yes, it was innovative. It was ahead of the game. It went global. We are talking every city, every town you turned up. In fact, I was in Australia over January, and there was a Body Shop in there, and it was packed and heaving. It didn't need to go bust, but I think here's the reason why. It got bought out by L'Oreal. L'Oreal knows how to use brands. It did not know how to run a retailer. And so the soul went out of it. You got a very organised business model, but you didn't get the business that was actually speaking to a value system of people anymore. So it sort of fell behind for a long while. And then sadly, in comes the private equity people. And when you start looking at the bottom line and you don't look at actually the process, the vision, and what made it successful and put that back at the heart, you're in a tricky, tricky path. And the sad thing is everybody's jumping on this bandwagon now. We have to look at the way that she did business. And we've lost one of the greatest brands we've ever seen in this country.
Mary Portas.